All right. Well, we've come across the 7 o'clock hour, and well, I wanted to start off by talking about Social Security. Yeah, Social Security has been in place for since the early 50s, I believe, was when the first accounts were started paying out, and it's been a situation where those who first put in didn't put in much money in comparison to what they got out. And today it's a program that is literally close to failing. It's not providing much for the US government. And honestly, government officials and bureaucrats, plain and simple, they don't handle money very well. It's been proven over and over and over again that government is not the best controller of our money. So when it comes to retirement savings that government has mandated, why is the government holding the money? Most of those monies are put into government bonds to pay for government actions that they just don't yield the American public very much money in reality. And it's like this big giant slush fund of money that the US government can just use as they see fit. And then they just don't take care of it very well. So I propose that we take the federal government out of the Social Security program. Now, this comes with certain risks, as there are a lot of people in the United States on Social Security, and they've paid in their entire life, and now they're not in a position to be able to pay into some of those programs. Some have gotten 401ks and 503bs and or 403bs, and those funds just plain and simple are available to them, but they still have Social Security and they need those funds. As you probably know or may not know, when you pay into Social Security, only a portion of what your earnings are go into paying Social Security. It taps out. I can't remember the exact number, but I believe it's like 125,000 at that point. Your liability for Social Security ends. On the other hand, the employer, they pay a portion of what goes into Social Security coffers, and that portion is basically not on your plate. It's on your employer's plate to pay. So it's a cost of doing business. So let's say that we take and say, hey, everybody, you need to go to the bank. You need to set up an account. It's a retirement account. You can invest those funds however you want. You are in full control of those funds. For those young kids who are, newly getting jobs at 15, 16 years old, and they're having to have 6% of their income directed to that account. Well, let's say that they're working just a few hours a week, they're making $100 a week. You know, it doesn't seem like very much, but that might mean that they're making between 25 to or 24 to 30 bucks a week, averaging, oh, or not a week, but a month. So averaging, oh, maybe, oh, let's say 52 times 6. What's that work out to be? 12, $312 a year. That doesn't seem like a whole lot, and it can go directly into savings, or maybe they're a little more savvy and they go invest in stocks and other investments through that account. That investment could grow much faster. And as they get older and their earnings increase, um, let's say that they just, by the time they start college, if they choose to go to college, they may have, maybe $1,000 in that account. And let's say they do go to college and they work part-time through college to get themselves through. They may have at the end of that maybe $5,000 or $6,000, and then if they've invested well, maybe they might have $7,000 or $8,000, and then they continue to work and pay into that fund. So now they're at, let's say, another 10, 20,000, 30,000 by the time they're 25 to 30, and they get to be 40, and now it's 300,000 or 400,000, and they get to be 50, and now they've got well over $1 million in that account. And those numbers are actually doable and can be achieved. And by the time they've reached 60, they have multi-millions of dollars in those accounts. And that's without the funds that the employer would normally pay, because those funds would be going to the US government to help cover the people who are currently in the program. I know it's a really hard thing for government to give up control and to stop stealing our money and using it as they see fit. But there are some potential benefits. When business does well and our economy is doing well and people are investing well and growing their money and savings are growing, that means that there's more money available for our economy to lend and grow our economy and grow the world's economy. We can't look at each and every system as a closed system. Our government often does things that makes it look like Social Security is a closed system where it has a limited return and really no money is being made on that money, because what comes in is being paid out essentially. It's a poorly conceived system that doesn't really benefit the public. It's a system that honestly needs more help. We uh, we as a country and as citizens need to do more. But often we fail to save. But when we're in a situation where we're forced to save, and then once we are saving, we have the capability to manage those funds ourselves and learn the value of saving, the value of investing, we become more savvy, and it leads to a wealthier nation, a stronger economy. Add that with a tax reform where you're not punished for earning, but rather given the opportunity to earn as much as you want without having to be punished for the amount you earn. And then when you purchase, you pay your taxes directly through your consumption. So as you buy goods, those goods are taxed. No services should ever be taxed unless there is a product behind it, like, you know, your phone service, internet service. Those things are fair to be taxed. But anytime you're talking about somebody's time, no taxes on time. That's ridiculous. But we see that and we hear that and we think, oh, that's going to cost us so much money. Yeah, it's going to increase the price of things a little bit. Not a lot, because now you've got businesses who are not having to pay income taxes on their employees. The employees are not paying income tax. So that reduces costs on businesses. So that means that the cost of producing products is reduced. But then you have to add in the fact that anytime a product is sold, whether it's ore or whether it's a created product, we need to collect a tax on. And those taxes need to be paid not in a year, they need to be paid when that money is collected. So if you go out and you buy a car on a credit card, then I hate to tell you, but you pay a tax on that car when it's purchased, and c'est la vie. You go get a loan, you're not going to pay a tax on getting the loan, but you do pay the tax on getting the car. So now the car has been reduced in prices by a little bit, and then the increase, and instead of paying 20,000 for the car, you end up spending 23. It's one of those things you just have to recognize. But you're not having to pay income taxes. You don't have to waste your money on accountants. You don't have to waste your money on a tax industry. Literally, we spend hundreds of billions of dollars on paying taxes. Why? We spend hundreds of millions, billions on employees for the US government. to collect taxes. Why? It's insane. Now, I understand, it's hard when you're working for a business or an organization and government changes the way it does things and your industry goes away. But when you're working in an industry that doesn't produce anything that is of real value, then you're just a cost center to everybody else. I know I have been paying taxes for a number of years, and it costs me several $1,000s every year just to pay the taxes I owe for accountants. Why? Those accountants could be working for businesses. They could be helping new businesses to grow and developing clients of their own, where they can be providing real support to those businesses that makes sense, that helps those businesses grow. We might even find out that, Americans are smart and they create businesses to lower their tax requirements, their tax bills, and they're technically phony businesses that don't do anything. They're just shills, just so they don't have to pay as much in taxes. Who would have thunk it? Oh, well, maybe a few smart people out there have. And maybe the government does know, but they don't have the resources or the time. With 330 million Americans, and probably somewhere in the neighborhood of 200, 300,000, maybe a million IRS agents, there's just not enough time in the day to go through and try and figure out which businesses are fake and people trying to make those businesses go, and which businesses aren't fake or are fake and are just trying to reduce the tax liability on income tax. It's insane that we should put people in a position where they feel like that they need to do that. It doesn't matter that we say it's illegal. Let's do something that is really fair in the way that we tax our citizenry. Let's get away from the income tax that punishes you for working and do things that encourages you to work and make money, encourages you to save so that you have something in the future, encourages you to learn how to invest, encourages you to learn how to save money appropriately, and invest in things that helps grow the economy. When the economy is bigger and the amount of money that is grown increases, all that does is generate more income for government. We need to have a system where when a company sells their product, whether that, well, let's go on an example here. So you're a mining company goes in and they go, we're going to go after lithium in Nevada. There's been a recent claim that there is like trillions of dollars worth of lithium in Nevada. And let's assume that that is true. So a mining company comes in and says, we're going to get that lithium. Under my plan, they work and work and work, and they pay their employees. They're not punished for having to have employees work and increasing their costs because they're not making any money. They don't have to worry about paying those employment taxes because there aren't any. But after a couple of years, they've stripped down and they've gotten to that rare earth, and they start pulling that lithium out. Now they get to that lithium and then they process it there at the mine, and they send it off. When they send that ore off to be processed beyond what is done at the mine, they need to collect a sales tax. And when they collect that sales tax, they need to pay those taxes immediately. Well, not immediately. They need to have their accountants go through it. But it shouldn't take more than 24 hours from the time they receive payment to the time that they pay those taxes. And that starts covering their costs of paying their employees when they're actually selling their product. And the price that they collect on their product, they need to have that tax portion calculated. So if the going rate for lithium is $3,000 an ounce, let's say that that is the fact, they can say, hey, and on top of that, the US government says that we have to collect 20% on top of that for taxes. And that means that the cost of lithium goes up, certainly enough. And they can do that with businesses so that the businesses know how much, that the businesses know that their cost for the lithium is actually $3,000 and their taxes is an additional $600, which means their cost for the lithium is $3,600. So then they take that lithium and then they process those into batteries. Well, their batteries are not going to be cheap because they're going to need a lot of that material. And let's say that a completed battery ends up costing $20,000 and they sell that battery to a car company. Well, they let the car company know, hey, our cost on that battery is $20,000. That includes our profit. And there's a 20% tax on that. So that means that, I'm sorry, but that's an additional $4,000. And so the car company pays $24,000 for the battery, and that $4,000 upon collection should be paid to the US government right away, within 24 hours. Then when you as this consumer go and take that battery, actually receive a car, and we're going to say that all these other processes have taken place, but you buy, what is considered a practical car, inexpensive car, um, then the cost of the car should run, let's say, $35,000. And then uh, the tax on that car included um, should then be like 3,500 to $7,000. Um, and let's say based on what MSRP is on that car, we'll say that the tax on the car is $7,000. And when that car sells and you see the price sticker, you see a $7,000. You don't feel the $7,000 because it's on the car. It's listed at 42,000, and when you buy that car at 42,000, it's 42,000. If you negotiate something a little bit different, whatever price you negotiate is the price you pay, not this, oh, well, you've got this fee and this and that and the other. Price includes all taxes. All taxes. So if the state wants to add on sales taxes and they want to add on taxes for this and that and road taxes and this and that and the other, then all those taxes have to be built into the price. And then once the car is sold to you within 24 hours, those taxes need to be sent into the government. It's simple. It's not a difficult thing. And it's easy for business. They don't pay until they get. And once they get, they pay. And once you get, then you're done. You don't have to think, oh, did I spend too much money? How's this going to affect me? Oh, am I going to have a refund that'll help cover the cost of this? No, you're not getting a refund because you're not paying income taxes. And nobody's there to sit there and say, oh, well, we feel like, because you don't make very much money, that you should get rid of that idea. The idea is not helpful. It's not useful. But you're getting every dime you earn, not a fraction of it. When the only thing that you earn that you don't see is the money that's going into your retirement account. And then you have control over how that money is maintained. You can have it go into the bank account and whatever the savings rate is and lose money because the interest rates on savings are so low, or you can learn to be more savvy and invest your money. You can go put it in the stock market or in mutual funds or into bonds. You can invest in the government if you so choose. But at least it's your choice, not the government's choice. And then government needs to be out there making sure that the interest rates that are on those savings accounts, on those retirement savings accounts, are appropriate levels so that you're not losing money. Because technically, a savings account should have an interest rate that helps cover the cost of inflation. So at least your money is at least staying stagnant at value. Should be. That means that the cost of money may go up a little bit. But let's say that you want to invest in yourself and you want to buy a home. And let's say that you've got $400,000 in savings and you come across a house that's $400,000. You can take a loan against the money that you have in your retirement account to buy the house. And then you're charged an interest rate. Obviously, that's going to be more than the amount that you were getting in savings because, somebody has to monitor and receive and collect your payments that you're basically paying to yourself. But at least those funds are going. So now you're getting up there in age, you're getting close to retirement, and heaven forbid something happens to you. Let's say that you've got a couple $1,000,000 in the bank. And as part of fiduciary responsibilities of the banks or brokerage services, they need to check with you on an annual basis to make sure that your payouts are being appropriated appropriately. So they'll send you out an email. And if you don't have an email, they'll send you out mail. But preferably you should have email. And they'll send you an automated email once a year that says, hey, are your deduction or your beneficiaries correct? And you go through and you should look at that email and you should respond to that email, knowing that you're going to get an email annually for that account. And it should come annually at the date of when you open that account. So if you open that account initially in June, every June you should get that information or that email. And it should say, hey, do you have wife? Do you have children? Do you have who is your beneficiary? And when you're in your teens, that might be your parents or a friend. Then you get into your 20s and maybe that's still your parents. Get to be into your mid-20s, maybe that's a spouse. Got young children as well, so they can be included into that list. And that needs to be updated annually. And if you do not respond within 60 days to that email, it just stays the same. But they should be also sending out automated emails every month or so that you see what the value of your account is. It should be a simple automated email. It doesn't have your account numbers on it. It just tells you, hey, your retirement account with us now has a value of X. And you are then able to know what the value is at. And let's say that you've gotten to be 54, 55 years old, you got a couple of $1,000,000 in that account. And heaven forbid you die in a car accident or you have a heart attack or some medical condition, cancer, you die. So at that point, your beneficiaries then get a distribution of that set of funds. And the US government will take 20% of what you have saved. And they will do that, unfortunately, until the last Social Security recipient has been paid out that is not on the is not self-paid. Does that mean that that's going to last a long time? No, given that, it may take 60, 65 years for that set of payments. But then once that last person is paid out, then the US government then will take the remaining funds and they'll turn it into another social funding program. But that big tax will then end and all those funds will go to your beneficiaries. So what if you have a beneficiary who is very, very young? Well, it will be the responsibility of the executor of those funds to ensure that accounts are created for those who are too young to open their own accounts. And then those funds will be managed by a parent or guardian or whomever that has been identified for those funds. Now, again, you cannot receive anything from those funds and from those accounts until you retire. And then once you retire, then those funds hopefully will be large enough that you can just live on the interest that is in those accounts. So you won't have to sit there and go, oh, am I going to have enough money to last for life? And then when you die, it goes to the remainings go to your beneficiaries, and it goes directly to their accounts where they are unable to touch it until they reach age of retirement. Now, when it's in their accounts and they're in a situation where they can personally borrow against it, then it's going to create a situation where it will make them richer and will allow them to invest in themselves or in other businesses or whatever, but their account should continue to grow. And at some point, we will have so much money in those programs that it won't stop people from having to work. It won't stop our economy from going. It won't overheat our economy. Rather, it will make our economy something that is more consistent, has value over long term, and provides benefit to those who have those accounts. for those US citizens. And if we have people who come to the United States and they come here legally, then they will be required to have those accounts. But again, they won't be able to touch that account physically until they reach the age of retirement, which is specified by law by government. Now, that doesn't mean that if you retire at age 50, that you'll have to continue paying into that, nor does it mean that you can't borrow from those funds. But hopefully, if you're retiring at age 50, that you have other income sources until you reach the age at which the government has determined is age of retirement. Now, I would assume that we would continue to say the minimum age of retirement is like age 60 or 62. And if you've got multi-millions in those accounts, that should mean that if you've done well for yourself and you've paid off your house, that you can live easily on the monies that interest accrues. And that could be in today's markets on those accounts. If you've got a couple $1,000,000, could be paying as much as $100,000 a year. That is a decent income for no longer having to work. And you can do other things. You can decide, hey, I'm going to produce products and put them out on eBay or Etsy or whatever else. Again, anything that you sell in the way of product, a sales tax has to be paid. And any profit you get, well, that's your profit. It doesn't matter. Your profit is your profit. No additional taxes do you have to be considered other than, maybe property taxes. Property taxes out there pays for certain essential services. And you should be able to afford yourself to live a lifestyle that you're accustomed to when you retire. And companies can, and sometimes will be willing to give you a portion of their company as part of your benefits package for working for them. But any of those type of programs should be going into your retirement accounts. You can work with them and set something that says a certain portion of those are allowed to go to you to pay for other things, such as if you're wanting to buy a house, and then you need to have an account set up specifically for that they would pay those funds into. It would be a personal housing purchase fund, and that would have to be deemed on how that would work with Congress as far as it works with your retirement accounts and making those funds available directly out of that account without having to borrow from yourself if that is what you choose to do. But either way, it puts you in a better position financially over your lifespan. And once those funds have done what they need to do, when your life ends, then your spouse will receive their payout from your account so that they can continue to live. And if your spouse works, they have their own retirement account as well. So maybe you're in double great shape because maybe your spouse at the age of retirement has a few $1 million in their retirement account as well. And then when you die, you specify how that money gets split up. And let's say half of it goes to your spouse and the remaining half goes to your children, minus the 20% that goes to the government for its programs that help those who are currently on Social Security. It makes it fair for you. It makes it fair to everyone who's been paying in. And it gets government out of the programs and puts themselves in a regulatory position. And the US government should regulate and ensure that those accounts are doing what they're supposed to be doing, that people are not embezzling money out of people's accounts, and that banks are not stealing those funds. Now, do banks need to make money? Oh, yes, they do. And the government needs to regulate how much that is. Now, that doesn't mean that government shouldn't allow the banks to make an appropriate or massive sums of money. Currently, there's brokerage funds out there that pay their people millions of dollars for managing these hedge funds and these other investment funds. And it's not really benefiting anybody but those funds. And it's literally stealing your money. So we need regulation, the government regulators to go in and audit and make sure that the taxpayers are not being ripped off by those banking institutions. The goal here is to build our economy, build our businesses, and make sure that people have the ability to survive their life in a lifestyle that they're accustomed to, and that they're able to utilize their funds appropriately and get government as much out of our lives as possible. There's no need for government to control and tell us what we need to be doing or how we need to be spending our money. Government does need income. So let's make it easy. Let's make it simple. Let's get out of the process of these regulators who are trying to make it fair, whatever that means, where government is picking winners and losers. Let's get the government out of the business of picking winners and losers. We've had way too much of that. And government doesn't always pick the best winners and doesn't always pick the best losers either. It's only interested in lining its pockets so they have more money to spend. We need to have government leaders who truly value the American experience. So when you're looking to come to the ballot box and you're looking to elect politicians, Because literally anybody who's in it, you may not be a politician when you're running, but you're a politician the day you enter politics. And that requirement of a politician, in your view, or a candidate, is, are they looking at my best interests? Or are they in it for the power that they can have over my pocketbook? If they're more interested in the power over your pocketbook, then they're not the right person. If they're interested in ensuring that the infrastructure that government is responsible for is taken care of effectively, that our roads are being maintained appropriately, that they're taking care of the potholes in the road, that they're replacing the roads effectively, or the utility commissions, that they're making sure that the utilities are replacing old infrastructure when they need to be replacing it so that it's not constantly failing. And they're spending hundreds of millions of dollars on replacements of things that should have been done years sooner. So there's not the level of failures. That's important too. But we're getting close to coming to a close here. And this is just a plain simple opportunity to be able to know where I stand. I stand on no income taxes. I stand on you having control over your Social Security funds, the actual physical money, you being able to invest those funds as you deem appropriate for your risk levels, and that you have the ability to grow your capabilities, grow your funds, grow your business. Business should not be so hard to get into in this country, um, so that we can prove something. Rather, we need business so that we can collect tax revenue. We need businesses to produce concrete items that we as consumers can purchase that make sense for us. We need innovation in what we're doing. We don't need businesses who have been in the industry for years choosing how we live our life. Yeah, we need clean air to breathe. We need a lot of good things in our life, but we don't need government hanging over our head and turning us into criminals because they want all of our money. You know, it's been long said that government doesn't like thieves because it's their competition. You know, in a lot of ways, that's way too true. But when you're paying taxes on your purchases rather than your income, government's going to like thieves a lot more because that means that you have to purchase more. Sorry to say it, but they just might encourage the thieves. On the other hand, when people are building wealth and they see their wealth building and they know they have that wealth and it's there and available to them because they're putting that money into those accounts because they're working and they're working hard and they're growing the businesses and they're creating. Wow, what an improvement to our society when we can do just that. When we can teach people how to invest, we can teach, we can now create things that we never thought ever possible because we are united as a people in developing ways to not only save our money, but invest our money and make that money grow. And by growing our money, it means that our government will have the funds that it needs so much more sense. Problem for government to meet its needs. Government needs to stop spending so much that it can't pay its bills. We still need protection. We need protection from foreign entities who threaten our way of life. Protection from organizations that are unwilling or unable to help us reach what we need. Financial freedom. And we need financial freedom for ourselves. We need financial freedom for our government. We need financial freedom for our schools. Financial freedom for ourselves. We've been a country where I've created so many programs that don't benefit us or take away from those who have done nothing wrong to care for those who've chosen poor paths. Well, that's another discussion for another day. So I'm Doug, and I'm running for president in 2028. And I would love for you to subscribe to my channel so that you know what my viewpoints are. I want you to be able to see where my viewpoints evolve. I want to hear your viewpoints and help my viewpoints to evolve because I'm really here in hopes of helping the American people, not just myself. And I want to be the person who has the ability to make a real difference. And we've come to an end. It is just about time to end this, but thanks for joining me. Hopefully you've watched to the end. I know that was a long diatribe, but hopefully a valuable one. Hopefully you've learned something more about me and my beliefs, what we're doing here in America, and how it is there to benefit us all. Thanks so much and have a great rest of your day.